supposed to attend this session in total, but I'm part of a committee which the government has formed on the simplification of the regulations, and the Minister of Industries is the chairman. So in his wisdom, he decided to advance the meeting from 11 o'clock to 10 a.m. So, and that is on Zoom. So I have to go there. I've apologized that I will not be there first, because I think it's discourteous for me to just leave Graeme without any introduction. Graeme has a very rich background. Yeah, he's just shared with me. But instead of me telling you, I think I'll leave it to you, Graeme, to give a background. And with this, I'd like to hand over to you. I think people are very keen. A lot of people are also on Zoom who would like to hear. I mean, not all of them could make it. Particularly, our members are outside Karachi as well. Just to give you an introduction, we are a group of 200 multinationals in Pakistan who are the largest economic player in the economy of Pakistan. Besides 1/3 of the total tax contribution of this country, we are also the largest investors, still is. And that speaks a lot, that you always hear some negative news about Pakistan, but I think the smart people who are doing business here and who are our members, when they see the opportunity, they do reinvest. And we are respected not only for our investment and our activities, we are also respected for the ethical side of the business that we do and the technology that we bring in. And I mean, making money is not difficult in many environments, but here making money ethically and in a smart way, giving some new technology and all those. That is what we are famous for, and that is where we are respected. So we are always looked upon as a group in terms of thought leadership. And that's what we have done it, and we are. That's why we are invited into various forums. We protect it very rigorously, and we want to maintain this leadership. And that's why we always bother people like you to come and upgrade our skills. So with this, Graeme, thank you very much once again. Over to you. I apologize if I'm free before the you wrap up. I'll come and attend. Otherwise, I'm handing over to AJ to run the show afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. I'll just give a very brief introduction of myself and then get into the topic that I wanted to share with you. So my name is Graeme Greenaway. I'm an Australian, and today we're not talking about cricket. So I'll spare you that topic, but I reside in Singapore. I've been in Singapore for the last 25 years. My background is actually technology. I have an engineering and a technology degree. And I've spent the last just over 30 years in banking, running technology or operations teams for large either investment banks or commercial banks. And my role today in Standard Chartered, I run what we call our corporate and investment banking operations. I run that globally. That spans more than 53 markets. And 50% of that organization sits in what I call our service centers, our hubs. The other 50% resides in our 53 plus markets. The other role that I play, so I wear two hats. The other role that I play is I am the head of technology and operations for those 53 markets. So basically the deployment and the service delivery of both technology and operations in those markets is my responsibility. I'm here this week visiting the team and working out how we can actually both export more of the thought leadership, the innovation that comes from Pakistan, but also better connections with the rest of the organization in terms of importing ideas. I'm sure with some of the organizations that you work for and that you come from, you've got the same problems and same challenges being solved in many markets. I'd like to solve a problem once. And have the other markets solving other problems, right? So everything I think about is around scale. Thank you. Everything I think about is about scale. We have a fast-growing business. On the corporate investment banking side, we're generally growing from a volume perspective more than 10% a year. And in the last 3 years, we've driven 17.5% productivity increase across my organization. Now, obviously, that's not just by everybody working harder, that's by leveraging technology. And what we're going to talk about today is obviously a topic that is talked about often, but not well understood, and accelerating, right? And given the size of the organization that I run, everybody's concerned around what AI is how it's going to impact them personally and the organization. When I speak to regulators, it's how are we going to impact the market with the use of this technology? So what I'll do is I'll go through the presentation, I'll share with you, and then I'm very happy to take any questions. I'll give you my thoughts, and I'm happy to be challenged and also to hear your thoughts on the topic as well, right? Because I think, you know, as we share, we learn. I'm an avid reader, so I enjoy learning. Down. Mhm. Oh, thank you. So in our organization and the way I think about our business as usual, it's transformation. That's what we do, right? So when I look at my operations organization, it's around 13,000 people globally. And everything we do is not just processing of transactions. It's about how can we process those transactions much more effectively, much faster. And also as the business grows, how do I contain my cost? Historically, as the business has grown, we've thrown more people at the problem. And when I look at our central hubs and our service centers, in order to reduce cost, we've brought down the seniority of the individuals that are executing those transactions, right? That creates operational risk for me. I end up with more people touching transactions, and the more humans I have touching transactions, that creates a risk. Yeah. With all the changes that we see and all of the hype around AI, right? There's a huge amount of anxiety in my organization. Everyone's wondering, you know, as we push and drive for AI development, experimenting with it, right? And the progress from machine learning to generative AI to agentic AI and how fast that is now moving. Everybody's worried, right? So in order for us to keep transforming, we need to understand how we can motivate our employees to keep focused, understand the role that they play and the role that they will have in the future. The vision that I have for my organization. Okay, I'm going to talk about the vision, then I'm going to talk about the challenges. Okay, so the vision that I have for my organization is one where our people leaders or the leadership within the organization are managing hybrid organizations. We need, and I need, my operations leaders to understand how to manage technology as a resource, right? That's where we're heading. They don't have the skills for that today. They're very focused on execution of BAU and where they can incrementally improve and transform. So we're running significant programs. We're just kicking them off to start upskilling our teams. First, to understand the role that artificial intelligence can play, but not just artificial intelligence, other technologies as well. what they can play in helping us do what we do at scale, right? So that we're upskilling. The teams know this is coming. So how do we position the role that they will play, apart from helping them know what's going to, they think it's going to take their jobs. I actually think it creates an opportunity for our organization to manage a much more interesting environment if they're up for it, right? So it's all about motivation and sharing the vision that people understand and are willing to buy. Yeah. So how do we motivate? If I speak to the Monetary Authority of Singapore and conversation I had with Deputy Director of the State Bank yesterday, they're concerned about us leveraging machines to make decisions. Yeah, I'm worried about that as well, to be honest, as a technologist. And so the message that I've been giving and the message that I give to my teams is I want judgment to remain human-centered. It's okay for us to leverage technology and to leverage AI, but how do I keep judgment human-centered? Because if I can keep judgment human-centered, then we can drive forward with a balanced ethical approach to how we do business that we control, right? So if I have a machine, and there's many movies out there that you can watch, around where the machines start taking over, that's because everyone in those movies let the machines take over, right? And so my approach to this, particularly as the technology evolves, is to remain human-centered with regards to how judgment is applied, right? In Standard Chartered, we do this through the use of a council that we formed around responsible AI. So we have a responsible AI council that governs the use and the thinking around how we will deploy AI, right? Both from a risk perspective, but also from an ethical perspective and from a view purely technical where we understand what the limitations are of the technology today and the challenges. So I talked about responsible AI just now, and I introduced the topic. Our people matter, right? I run a huge people business, ultimately. And in order for the team to stay motivated, I need to help them understand how we think about responsible AI. So we run these councils very, at the top of the house, at the top of the organization, getting the message down through the organization so people actually understand what it means for them is critical. And so through the education, through talking about judgment, helping them understand what judgment means. Judgment is about making the ultimate decision on something, right? And I'm sure you're all making decisions. You wouldn't like to have a machine make a decision for you. Not just yet, yeah. So it is about getting the message down and helping our teams understand what it means to keep judgment human-centered and the role that technology plays around that, right? This is my last slide, and then I'm going to sort of give you some of my own thoughts in addition to what's been presented. But I just wanted to leave this with you. I mean, why is this important to us that we think about judgment in particular, right? When you think about AI, there's certain foundations that need to be in place in order for AI to be effective and to add value to what we do, right? The data that we have and the accuracy of that data, right, is critical for the outcomes that AI can help us leverage on. Yeah. Things we're concerned about hallucinations, right? So what that means is where you've got an algorithm that is leveraging data, you want a decision to be made or a direction to be taken. It takes that data, misconstrues the context of the data, and gives you a very bizarre outcome. Okay, that's generally what a hallucination is with regards to AI. You've then got bias, right? So if I think about the business that we run, a lot of it revolves around credit decisioning in the bank. If I allow AI to determine whether or not I get a loan or you get a loan, right? What data is it using? The context of that data can determine bias as well, and can result in biased decisions being made, right? And we need to be really careful about that and understand the implications of that, right? Both ethically and systematically within our processes, because we're looking to scale and we want to use this technology to scale. AI gives us a very different way of thinking about how we can deploy technology if we're prepared to open our minds a little bit, right? Historically, if you think back to the first versions of AI, it was very much around RPA, or robotic process automation, right? Where we try and automate a process. And that's very much rule-based, yeah. Then we had machine learning, where you could start to train models, give it data, it would pick up trends in that data, and you could throw other data at it, and it would give you a response based on what it had learnt, and some insights based on what it had learnt from the previous data. Generative AI, the next step, even more than that. I'll talk about agentic AI in a minute, but we've generally thought about the application of AI being something where it is a continual improvement. And we base it on our existing processes. So we're looking at our existing processes, how we operate today, and then we apply some AI to that to streamline a part of a process. That's just continual improvement. That is not really transformative, and it's not how we should be thinking about AI today. Now with agentic AI and generative AI, we've got the opportunity to create what we call agents. And an agent is something that you can give a task to, and it will perform multiple steps in a task for a particular outcome. As an organization, and as we help train people in thinking about how we can leverage AI and how we can apply it, everyone is still in the mindset of, well, here's my current process. How can I leverage generative AI to help me streamline that process? The way we're starting to think about it is, well, here's my current department operating instruction. Here's my policy and my standards that I have. I want to give that to a large language model, to an AI agent, and have the AI agent define for me a new process, right? And the prompting that I give the agent can then completely transform the way I think about that process. So I'm not necessarily starting from the paradigm that I have and the thinking that I have about my existing processes. I'm throwing the constraints, the policies, etc., at a large language model that has lots of data, including the policies, to say, now define a new process for me, right? Similarly, a big problem we have with AI today is that data quality. So the underlying data quality is a real issue. I'm sure it's an issue for many of you sitting here, right? Our approach to putting controls in place and to rectifying data quality issues as we see them and as we find them is very manual for us today. Yes, we run scripts and we fix data in certain ways. But to leverage AI to make a judgment on data based on certain parameters and then to correct it for us, we can then do that at scale, right? And so we're starting to think very differently about how we can leverage AI to help us think differently, but also to really transform rather than stay in this incremental improvement paradigm that we've been operating in for so long. The other thing that is really important to us is when we're looking at the tools that we have, right? How do we get everybody to the same level of understanding so that things can be applied in a standard way, right? So we don't have anyone going off and running rogue and deploying something that that they shouldn't, because they actually understand the long-term or the unintended consequences of the decisions that we make today, right? So it's no longer for us about playing a short game. We're not chasing quarter by quarter, right? This is about, if we put this in place, we need this to be maintained for the longer term, right? And then that leads me on to resilience, right? So just like everybody here, if you start deploying technology to do the roles that humans may have been performing, and you start reducing your human workforce, when the technology stops working, what do? So two things happen over time, right? One is when the technology stops working, you need people to pick up the pieces. For a bank that I work for, if I don't have people that can pick up the pieces and minimize client impact when our technology stops working, I have a real problem, right? I have regulatory issues, I have client dissatisfaction, etc. off the back of that. So I will never be a 0-person shop. It's impossible. I don't see that, not in my lifetime, right? Being a 0-person shop. I can be far more efficient and I can scale using this technology. But I need, in order to be resilient, I still need people that understand how a bank works, that understand our processes down to a level of detail that if the tech stops working, we can still do what needs to be done and minimize client impact. And we need to make sure that the people that are deploying the technology understand what the limitations are and the guardrails in which we want to operate. So the quote on this slide, I mean, Peter Drucker, I'm sure many of you know who that is. You know, he obviously, we know, doesn't struggle with these challenges. You know, he's passed a little while ago. But, you know, this statement is one that always sticks in the back of my mind, particularly when I'm thinking about AI and I'm having conversations with my own teams, right? The best way to predict the future is to create it. And how we deploy and how we leverage AI is completely up to us. So what do we want our future to be? You know, there's another quote by an author who was being interviewed and someone asked her what she thought of AI. And she said, well, I don't want AI to play my music and to play my sport and do all the things I enjoy so that I can do the washing and the ironing. Yeah. I want AI to do the washing and the ironing so I can enjoy life. So it's very much about how do we maintain the human condition? I don't want to get too philosophical, but it is about how do we maintain the human condition, not just in our lifetime, but for our children and our children's children, right? And in terms of this quote, the future is up to us and up to everybody in this room and the legacy that we leave with regards to how we leverage this technology. I still want to enjoy life. And when I think about my own organization, it's about removing the mundane activities, which this technology today is very much equipped to handle. And how we deploy that at scale will make a massive difference for our teams, help motivate them when they realize that they're still the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that can advance in their career and that they can lead organizations ultimately that will be hybrid organizations. I'll leave it there. I'm very open to questions. We are actively working in the organization at Standard Chartered to test different concepts around AI and to deploy them where they make sense. But we're very cautious and we're very thoughtful about how we're going to deploy that. We deploy internally first before we'd ever expose anything to a client, given the limitations and the concerns that we have. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a lot of time. Yeah, sorry. So we have a lot of time for a discussion. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Just in 2 slides, your banking background, my name is on a banking background. The first order. I think I'm loud enough to.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. The cross-border transactions, especially trade-related transactions, are huge, and your bank is specialized on that. And we also deal day-to-day basis on that. Blockchain technology is evolving very quickly, which is secured, and cryptocurrencies will be the mode of transaction, which are decentralized model, where banks and central banks will have a very less role in transactions, especially cross-border and within the country. How would you plan using AI to control the anti-money laundering issues, KYC issues once the customer cross-border dealing with cryptocurrencies? And they're also using the transaction through blockchain technology, and goods will be transferred physically, but the money will be decentralized. So what you foresee the AI feature usage in that?
So if I think about how we look at financial crime surveillance today, we do leverage AI in our existing operation, right? So we use generative AI today in looking at the hits that we have with regards to money laundering, et cetera, and to work out what is real and what is not, right? So those models continue to learn, and we continue to leverage that. Given the number of transactions that we see and that we process, I would need, well, I do have thousands of people looking at it, but I'd need, probably 3 times the size of the team if we weren't already deploying this technology. When it comes to crypto and also blockchain, obviously we do participate today in certain blockchain initiatives, and we've, we have transacted across public chains. We've also recently just launched crypto exchange, right? So we do have a crypto exchange, and we are transacting on behalf, even on for corporate clients, with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the major currencies. When it comes to, I guess, how we look at it from a governance perspective, right? We still need to run CDD. We still need transparency of the payments. Now, if you think about Bitcoin today, well, great, not much transparency, okay? But in terms of, we have our own exchange, we still do KYC and client due diligence. That obviously becomes, paramount in order to understand the movement of funds. So I see AI continuing to play a part, but we will just be scaling what we have today if the technology wasn't moving. Now, the technology is changing, it's advancing. The models that we leverage, and we can combine models as well. So it's not just about using one model. We can have one model feed another model, feed another model, if we believe that gives us a better outcome. And we test that as well. But I do see it, it's necessary for us to leverage those models, because they can operate much faster than the teams could if they were doing investigations and other things and looking for the same patterns. Yeah. So I see it playing a major part moving forward. It is already there, but it will be scaled, and we'll continue to use the newer models. More data comes along, and I think with the seamless transaction flow that you get from using blockchain with the distributed ledgers, we need to use it, because you won't be able to scale, right? And you'll be left behind. The volume of transaction and the seamless flow of transaction will be far more than it is today. I mean, we already see, even in our normal flows, our payment volumes have increased 10% year on year for the last 5 years, right? So we see that still continuing. Then you add blockchain and crypto to that, it's going to be, I predict it, we're going to get to a point where it's exponential over the next few years.
First of all, thank you, Graham. I really enjoyed your talk. My name is Dr. Faisal. I work for Novartis, and basically we bring innovative medicines into Pakistan, highly gene therapies. We have already started to use AI at different levels. Definitely, we're also doing the same approach as you are doing, that the hybrid kind of setup. Currently, my team and my colleagues, we all are using AI to better understand the data, make more prudent judgment while making decisions. But at the same time, we also realize that the people who are working for AI, or who are day and night trying to evolve AI, definitely at this point of time, we see these limitations, that the data might not be correct. You need people to, make sure the data is validated. You can use a command in one way and get a set of data. You just change the command and you get a totally different data. But with the passage of time, I think AI is also going to evolve. And maybe for now, maybe we are the ones who are innovating. AI is just using the previous data. But there would be a time where AI would also start, innovating and coming up with newer data, maybe probably before humans. So, how do you see that fear? Number one, how do we as leaders give the assurance to our people to cope up with that fear? Number one. And number two, we have our organizations have a mix of people. We have the younger lot, and then we also have these non-tech savvy, people who are very, the basic minds of the organization. So we do need them. But at the same time, getting them to adopt AI is a bit of a challenge at this point of time. So what advice would you give for that?
Okay, so
Thank you.
there's a few things in there. I'll try to unpack each one. So on the demographic, so the age demographic within the organization, obviously I have the same challenge. And here in Pakistan, Standard Chartered is over 160 years old. Yeah. Not that our staff are, just to be clear. But yeah, we do have long tenure of staff in the organization, which is great, and everyone feels very connected to the organization. But as we go on this journey, and as we've seen AI accelerate, really, the concepts of AI, if you think about it, AI is not new. I mean, robotics and machine learning, they've been around for almost 20 years. Actually, RPA even before that, probably 30 years. So, but it's accelerating so quickly now, right? But if you don't at least start to understand how it can be leveraged, you will be left behind. Okay, there's no doubt. A lot of it comes back to the education, the training, getting people used to just using basic tools. We recently deployed, took us quite a while, but we recently deployed, ChatGPT, a version of ChatGPT into the bank, right? Now, given we're a bank, we've had to very much constrain that. But just by having people use it and get used to using it, that may not have, I have it on my phone and whatever, just in general, because I like playing with this stuff. But if you're not used to that and you don't, and you're worried about it, you would tend to ignore it and not want to play with it. But encouraging our teams to use it internally, try it out, etc. Plus put them through training. We were talking yesterday, we launched a program internally that focuses on AI training awareness, and then gets into people thinking about how they could leverage AI and solution with AI, right? We have 2,000 people across the organization globally who signed up for this program, right? Here in Pakistan, of that 2,000 globally, 982 of our staff have signed up to it, okay? And we have roughly 2,000 staff here. So, and that's across the bank. And in a town hall that I was running yesterday, and people, the types of questions people are asking, we're basically going to open it up again and see who else wants to apply for this. So I think there is a level of interest, and that's right through the organization. It's how you introduce the training and the awareness, and you do it in a way that's not it's non-threatening, right? It is about, this is a positive thing. And to the point here, you know, define your own future. Don't let the future define you. Yeah. And so that's how we're approaching it. It's, you know, I'm not going to paint too rosy a picture. I think some people will be left behind, right? They won't adapt. They won't want to adapt because it's just human nature. Not everybody jumps on every trend either. I also think we need to be very balanced in how we promote the use of this technology, right? There is a lot of hype out there as well, right? And a lot of the things I'm worried about is because everyone's jumping on the hype, right? We're not in a position to deploy agentic AI and replace humans in my team today. Now, I may be able to replace some of the activities with agentic AI in the near future, but I won't be replacing scores and scores of people with that. I need people to oversee it, right, until it matures. And I think that's where we need to bring the balance into how we talk about it, how we communicate it. You know, if I talk to any of the consulting firms and they're all talking to us about how they can help us, right, with AI, but they're all talking to me about, you know, what they've deployed, what they've got up and running, et cetera, et cetera. All sounds great. It's all selling really well. But when I go and have a look at it, I can't apply any of it, right? So we need to see through the hype, understand what it really means, and try and help communicate that in a much more balanced way. On the data topic, to the point of human judgment, I think everything we do with AI still requires human oversight, right? And we test. So if I'm doing, if we're running an initiative that picks up our documents, uses OCR to interpret what's on there, picks out critical data elements, then moves on with a process, we're tracking what the accuracy is. So we have other models that will look at accuracy, right? Not just of OCR, but actually transformation of data over time, and call that out. So we want to make sure that we're getting a certain level of accuracy that we're comfortable with, but there's still a level of human oversight to say, okay, 95% accurate. I'm okay with that, right? 25% accurate. I'm not okay with that. I'm not using any of that. Okay. So it sort of depends on how you want to use it and where you put human oversight into the process. And we're thinking about all of that. But again, very inward focused initially. Even our chatbots that we have on our mobile apps, etc. We tested those very heavily internally before we gave them access. We gave our clients access to those sort of things. And we still use chatbots internally for my client service teams, or use chatbots internally for when they're speaking to a client. If there's some information that's not on the screens that they've got, they can quickly type into the chatbot while they're speaking to the client and get the information pulled up from somewhere else. So there are ways to introduce it. There's ways to get people used to it, and to also challenge for quality. Yeah. But I think we need to be really creative. Sorry, we need to be really creative about how what controls we want to put in place.
Seems to me like all of this has been developed by ChatGPT. So I think that let's put this aside because this has already been done. Let's do something new. So now you know what has been done. Now let's think of something new. So in that way, again, AI does help.
Just before the next question, anyone on the call, if you have any question to discuss with Graeme, you can raise your hand, and then we'll use the moderator's help to get you unmuted. Thank you.
So Graeme, you talked about hybrid organization or hybrid structures. So do you measure those, whether the organization is ready to implement these with the employee base that you have currently in the organization? For example, taking the example of your organization, do you measure the impact of these hybrid models or structures? What impact do they have on the employees? Are they ready? Are they equipped?
So are they ready? No, not yet. I've set the vision for what I want things to look like. with the organization and started talking about the hybrid model. And I'm doing that for two reasons. So one is to prepare the organization for where we will get to eventually, yeah, but also to help I guess, reduce some of the anxiety in the system as well, right? Because if I keep silent on where we're going or where we're heading, that doesn't give anyone any comfort, right? But being very transparent around what this journey will look like over time and what we're going to do with and for the employees to help them scale up their thinking, enhance their understanding, and train them to manage a hybrid workforce, right? By being very transparent about that, a lot of the anxiety has come down. It doesn't mean there's no anxiety, by the way. Change means anxiety, right? But it is helping, just setting a vision, showing what that would look like, and getting the teams to understand that they will be managing a very different construct. And that in itself can be exciting, by the way. It's not doom and gloom. It's actually an exciting proposition to have a broader mandate, to have a more interesting role, and we will prepare you for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So my name is Mustafa Khan. Bit of context before I ask you the questions. So I used to work for Shell, and then we got sold off, and we've now become a spin-off company called Wafi Energy Pakistan Limited. So my question is two parts. One is around how do you introduce AI to a young and upcoming organizations, and what information would you want to disseminate, or what information you would want to share with your employees as a new organization from an AI perspective? And the second part is to your earlier part of the conversation. You said that, you in your organization, you're asking people to upskill so that they become more used to the type of AIs which are available and essentially upskill themselves, right? But how do you move that fear from people that, there's a possibility of being left behind, or there's a possibility of being replaced or sort of made redundant in some form or shape or the other? It might not be applicable, but that fear still exists, right? The anxiety level is still high. So how do you tackle that? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with that one and I'll go back to the first point. As part of the programs that we've launched, we're not only doing the training to help people understand and be aware of the tools that are available, et cetera, and how they can use them, how to think a little bit differently about leveraging this technology than previous technologies as well. We're also asking them to come up with ideas that they can then work on, that can be implemented to help them do what they do today, right? So it's about not just educating them and then having them sit there wondering when it's going to come and be done to them, yeah? It's about being involved and actually coming up with ideas that can then be implemented, that they can then own, work with other colleagues across the organization to then implement them. That's the step that we're taking to, I guess, reduce some of that anxiety and not just feel like, yeah, you're being educated about what's going to happen to you. Yeah, we want them to be involved. We want them to leverage the tool sets that we already have and understand what is coming and start thinking different and then apply it, right? It's taken us a long time to get certain things in place because of, the controls that we have and the constraints that regulatory constraints we have around data access and all of that sort of thing in the bank. But we've done a lot of work to get to where we are. We now have tools that people can use, and we want to encourage that use in a positive way. And that's what we're building into the program. So it's not just a one-way education on things, it's them giving something back because they can play with it, they can try it out, they get recognition for it as well. To the first point, it's really around providing certain very simple tools, right? And helping people understand what those tools can be used for and just get them to experiment, right? So we started with ChatGPT, and teams are now using, individuals are using ChatGPT just to do everything from, prepare presentations to, draft emails, correct the English, because, across many markets, English is not always the first language either, right? So just to correct the language. We don't encourage people, having books written by it. you know, but just to become more efficient and more effective, do things a little bit quicker. And the more people get used to it, they just naturally, you know, go there and start to use those tools. We use Copilot as well with Microsoft Teams, so that, you know, the teams can actually record the meetings, get the minutes sent out. Takes 3 seconds for the minutes to be derived, and most of the time they're very good, right? So we still do obviously review, but the individuals are using those tools today, and so that's how we introduced it. And I'd say it's the same for a small company as well. You just need to put some guardrails around what you think it can be used for and what you don't want it used for.
Graeme, I have a question regarding the data privacy around using these ChatGPTs and other AI-related applications. What protocols would you suggest keeping your client's data privacy maintained in it?
So first of all, with ChatGPT and how we've constructed ChatGPT internally, there's no client data accessible to the models, right? That's the first point. So we're generally been putting things like our policies, procedures, uploading that data into our data model and running the LLMs over that, right? So there's no client data. We could have transaction data where there's no client information, or where there is public data, right? So a lot of corporate information is public that we can put in. So we're quite particular about what data we will actually put into the data model that we can have large language models running over. The next iteration of that is to then put, obviously, your authentication, have your authentication engines strongly wrapped over the top of that. So, you know, the first step is no sensitive data, and just get people using the models. The next step is how you manage authentication over the top of that, so you can have, you know, sensitive information in there, but it's only accessible, and the model will only access that when the authentication is granted, right? And the access is granted. So we're sort of taking it in steps, but we wanted to get the tools out for people to use as quickly as possible. And the easiest thing for us to do was just public and non-sensitive data. Yeah, but it's a bit of a journey. And there's different ways of doing the authentication today as well. And whether it being, we can encrypt all the data that's in the databases as well, then have authentication over the top of that. So you've got multi-level controls.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shoaib. I'm from Angro. My question is more or less touched upon, but slightly different tangent to it. Banks that you're dealing with, white collar workers, other organizations have blue collar workers as well. But AI is primarily impacting white collars more, in my opinion, as compared to other trades of the labors. So when you're dealing strategy for AI, and especially targeting white collars, and at the same time, your talent development programs, HR, are also working to upskill the same segment. Typically, there is a bell curve of the employee skill set, right? With the advent of this AI, that skill bell curve is going to flatten a bit, maybe in a year's time, where junior workforce will come at par with the senior ones with the use of AI. And the senior ones are being challenged because they're not having their experience coming to advantage, because the LLM has learned the same knowledge and can be applied by a junior person. So how to deal, or planning to deal with this kind of a challenge maybe next year, where you'll be in your appraisal cycle, where two people competing, both using ChatGPTs or Copilots, for instance?
That's a good question. I'll go back to a piece on judgment, right? So first of all, I've been in this industry for over 30 years that I operate in, and I've been in technology for pretty much all of that time, right? And before that. What I've seen and the cycles that we go through, both from a banking perspective, but also technology, the hype cycles that we have around technology, how we envisage technology making a difference, right? Think back to cloud, right? So when cloud was being pushed and the hype around cloud, everyone saw cloud as a way to drastically reduce cost. Drastically reduce cost. Didn't happen, did it? Right? Actually, we had to change our financial modeling because we went from being able to capitalize to then being purely expense, primarily buying services and expensing those services directly, right? So the initial hit was huge when people woke up to it, but it hasn't really reduced our cost, right? I also think from an AI perspective, everyone's talking about, yes, we can slash costs. If we don't need people, we won't have the cost. But actually the cost of, I'm going to make a prediction here. The cost of maintaining the data centers, just the compute power alone, and the energy required to keep those data centers cool and up and running, I think we're underestimating, because our demand on compute power is only going to go up exponentially the more we leverage AI, right? So I don't see that cost, being thought about very practically today. We're on the hype of the technology, not, we're looking at the revenue side, we're not looking at the cost side here, yeah? And I think that's partially why I think we're very focused on the white collar piece, as you mentioned, because this is about a cost opportunity, yeah? But I don't think that's real, to be honest. What I do think is real is a scale opportunity, right? To me, this is all about scale, right? If I can process double the number of transactions we have with the same size workforce I have today, brilliant. That's what I'm going for, right? So that's on the white collar, blue collar piece. I think the judgment piece as well. Again, we need to make sure there's still oversight on all of this stuff, right? I'm not very convinced that a business will be successful if it starts allowing AI at this point in time to start making business decisions for you, right? I give an example. I drive a car, and the car that I have in Singapore, has a feature where I can push a button, and with the cruise control on, it will keep me in my lane and whatever. I put the indicator on, the car will change lanes for me, etc. When I'm driving along the highway and I've got this feature turned on, I can tell you my hands are very close to the steering wheel. Because as I go around that first bend and the car starts to turn and then doesn't seem to be turning the wheel as much as I would be if I was going around that bend, I'm ready to grab hold and adjust it. That's exactly how I think about AI today. We're not ready, right? And okay, it's my first time in Karachi. When we can have autonomous vehicles driving around Karachi with no accidents, I will let AI start making decisions for me. Okay? Yes?
Yeah, a follow-up to the conversation. And I must say that you mentioned about Copilot also. So I like the word Copilot, but I personally think that it's a very, very junior Copilot.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have a captain to run the plane that he's responsible for safely taking off and landing all the passengers. But there's a Copilot to guide you, to assist you, but you can't offload your task or responsibility to that Copilot. So it's a very, very junior Copilot. But by that standard, you also talked about anxiety level. And I want to understand from a banker's perspective, what is the anxiety in a bank which is like 150 plus years old? Are you anxious because you feel like a player like Ant Financial in 20 years can overturn and disrupt your legacy? Is that creating that anxiety level in the organization? I'm not talking about personal anxiety.
Yeah.
Organizational anxiety.
No,
Is that of a disruption?
So I think, well, first of all, we partner with Ant. So when we're quite happy with the partnership that we have. But I think the anxiety that we have is organizational anxiety is really around with all these changes, what do we focus on, right? We have a habit, right, of trying to be everything for everybody all at once, okay? Which means we want to do everything and we want to be part of everything all at once. And I think that's where, you know, back to the hype around these technologies, right? We need to be careful and not waste investment, right? Be very balanced in how we think about these things and what the consequences are of them. Try and determine what is hype and what is real. So what we could actually get value from today if we invest, yeah, and not focus on the wrong things. So I think a lot of our anxiety is missing out, which is human nature, right? You don't want to be left behind, right? But at the same time, we have limited resource, like everybody else, limited investment capacity. We want to make sure we make the most of that. And I think that's where quite a bit of the anxiety is. Are we making the right decisions? Are we putting our investment into the right places so that we can, you know, in some cases stay ahead, like we are in the crypto space at the moment? So I think that's more of where the anxiety is. In the individuals in the organization, the amount of transformation and change has just increased significantly over the last few years. And people are, you know, not a lot of people are comfortable with change, right? And so that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from. And AI and all the hype around it and what it's, you know, what people are saying it can do today, which it can't do today, you know, give it a little while, it probably can do, right? That leads to increased anxiety. And that's why we're putting in place these programs to get people to understand what AI really can do today, and then get them to get their hands dirty on initiatives that they come up with and try and use it and see how effective it really is. Because I can tell you some of the ideas that people come up with and the initiatives that they then try and push, they realize actually there are limitations. That helps with the anxiety as well. I think there's a question online.
Yes, hi. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
Hi, thanks, Graeme. I've really enjoyed the presentation and the discussions that are ongoing at the moment. My name is Salim Unwer, and I represent Attic Refinery up in Rawalpindi. I just, you know, following on from some of the questions in your last answer, other than anxiety and getting people familiar with ChatGPT, I'm curious as to how you're monitoring the utilization of ChatGPT. What are the KPIs? How do you determine whether it's a success or not? I mean, other than the anxiety side of things and getting people comfortable with it, how do you measure whether or not it's adding additional value? Do you have defined KPIs that you're happy to share?
That's a great question. We like to measure a lot of things. I'm not sure we're measuring the use of our internal ChatGPT very well, other than how many people are accessing it and how, you know, and what types of prompts they're giving, right? So we're looking at the prompts and who is accessing it, and from that we're then determining how it's being used, right? But we haven't set any targets or thresholds at the moment. I also just to be very transparent, I don't think with the data that we've got in our internal ChatGPT today that it can be broadly used. It's not like the public ChatGPT, right? So the use is a little bit limited, and that's some of the feedback that we're getting, and that's why we're now working on the authentication layers, etc., to put more data in that's relevant to the individuals who are using it. But I think by giving it to the teams and having it restricted as well, it's also helping to reduce the anxiety to the point I was making earlier, where people see the limitations of it, right? It's not something that's just tomorrow going to take their jobs away, right? And so that is sort of helping, but just getting people using these things is a first step. And then as we train them, as we progress with the technology itself and get more data in there, get more sophisticated models overlaying that data, the teams will be more ready. And that's what we're more concerned about at this point.
Any more questions or anything? G. I mean, he can listen to you without mic also. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. In the recent studies, I have come to know that most of the young students are getting admissions in AI-based degrees instead of doctorate, doctors and engineers. Admissions are going down. So when all the students are getting degrees in AI, where they will implement? If they don't have the degree of doctor or engineer, how they will implement the AI degree in doctor field or in engineer field or in a banker field? They have only the AI degree. So where they will implement? And universities are also encouraging to AI degrees. So where they will implement? Then supply of the AI educators will be increased in the market.
So I'll come back to the hype piece, the hype cycle, right? And my son, my oldest son, he works in Japan for a technology company, and he studied computer science and has a master's in AI, and just as some other people I know sitting in this room do as well. But when I look at what he does, right, and why did he choose to move into AI? It was because of the hype, right? He didn't know what he was going to be doing off the back of that. Yeah. And he just so happened to end up in a technology company and he's doing stuff with AI, but I'm pretty sure it's not what he expected to be doing when he thought about doing this degree. Yeah. And I think once we're over the hump of the hype cycle, you'll see things start to swing back to a better balance. That may take another year or two, I would say, with where we are. But if you look at the number of startups as well, and we obviously keep track of what's going on in the startup community with our innovation labs and other things, there's so many startups that are focused purely being AI first and AI driven, you know, and we know that 80% of startups fail, right? So, you know, we're going to see a bit of an overabundance of AI educated people that are looking for something to do. That's my prediction.
That's my question. A professional banker or doctor can easily learn AI and implement in the organization, but an AI degree holder can't implement the doctor medicine and can innovate the medicines.
Yeah, so I think definitely an issue, but I think after we ride the hype cycle, we'll start to swing back to people making what I would say are more balanced and more rational decisions on what they want to do. If I think about what my son is doing today, he actually, everything he does is about building AI models, right, for use by others. That's all he does. I mean, he's very smart. Very hard for us to have a conversation about computer science, even though we did the same degree. It's very different today, I can tell you. But in terms of what the expectation is once you graduate and have an AI based degree versus the reality will take a little bit of time to sink in.
No more? Okay, thank you, everyone. My apologies that I had to miss out, but I made sure that the meeting, I mean, I didn't walk out of the meeting. I think the minister was sensitive enough. He also had to go somewhere. So anyway, thank you very much, Graeme, for a very interesting subject that you raised. I didn't participate, but let me tell you that I asked some very difficult questions before coming to the meetings because he came earlier. So we had a nice one-to-one session. So I'm fairly up to date as to in of the top issues that we were talking about from the banking and the other side. But I hope that you people didn't let him go easy, you know, and because he has come all the way from Singapore, and we really want to thank Standard Chartered for bringing him here. It's a subject we've been asking for. I mean, he's been bringing some security people most of the time, but this is one subject which is forward-looking, and I think which is challenging, and I think it's something where a lot of people do not know too much about it, and I think we hope that we will have more such sessions from you or from somebody else, because I think it's an evolving technology, and there is a lot more to run. And as I was discussing with you, that there are 5 digital banks have been authorized by government of Pakistan, and none of them have come in real life as yet. They are at different stages. So we will also have some, some sort of an experience, and I think things are being practiced here as well. So once again, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to, inshallah, keeping up to date on this.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and I hope that was helpful. The questions actually really helped me, by the way, in terms of helping my thinking as we move forward on this topic as well. So,
like the last
appreciate it.
question, I think, which is basically for the unknown.
Yeah.
One of the things, let me tell you that, where AI is being checked here also is that, if you write something for the good newspapers, which we have seen, they immediately test you on, and they refuse it. That they said, you go and write yourself. Don't use the AI technology to write. Just give the thoughts, and so that is something which we have seen in real life here. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thanks, everyone.